passive income, buying a business is a bad idea. But if you're looking to become wealthy, it's a great idea, and here's why. I'm going to run through the numbers. This is a typical, look, here's something to think about. Here's something to think about. The average business from startup to 2 million. 2 million in sales, 2 million in turnover, pounds, euros, dollars, it doesn't matter. 95% of all businesses never get to 2 million. Furthermore, the first 5 years is like the critical time. Well, if most businesses never get to 2 million and the first 5 years is the most critical time, my thought is, why don't we skip that part? Let's just skip it. We don't have to go through this brain damage. We can skip this whole part and start right here. What a good idea, and that's what I've been doing. I don't buy big businesses. I have before, but I don't do that really anymore. I kind of like buying smaller kinds of businesses. And the reason is because I have less bureaucracy, and I like the ability to be able to push a lever and watch the thing go whatever direction I want it to go. Big businesses are a little bit harder and more complex to fly. Let me give you an example of a typical, this is very typical, and I've got a bunch of people that have done this. A business is doing $1,900,000 of sales, of turnover. Their EBITDA, which you all got, everybody in here knows what it is, right? Anybody going, I wonder what EBITDA is? No, you already know that. So their operating income is $550. This would be typical. The average business that sells, and this works in the UK, it works in Europe, it works in Australia, it works in New Zealand, it works in the US. The typical business that sells for a multiple of 2.8 times EBITDA. That's average. Average multiple that it sells for is 2.8 times. Well, I said, let's take EBITDA and multiply it times 3. So that's a purchase price of £1,650,000 pounds or euros. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, Keith, this is a great idea. I don't have £1,650,000 pounds. I know. Wait a second. Of this $1,650,000, the seller, the average seller will carry about 50 to 70% of the purchase price. They know they're not going to receive cash when they sell the business. So in this instance, I used $1 million as the seller note. So the seller is selling for $1,650,000. Of that, they're going to carry a note for about 8 years and 8%. The bank, now this is harder today than it used to be with the banking situation, but typically when you buy a business, there's some assets that the business owns that you're able to take to the bank. If there's not, then part of this bank financing gets rolled into the seller, so the seller just gets a little bit bigger. So the bank typically would finance $350,000. The seller is going to finance $1 million. That means you're $300,000 short. I already know what you're thinking. Keith, I don't have $300,000. I know. Let me ask you a question. Is there anybody in this room who has some money they'd like to invest today? You got investment capital and you'd like to earn 20% annual cash-on-cash return. Would anybody like to earn it? All right, look around the room. Look around the room. Good, I just found your partners. I did, because you need $300,000 of equity. Of that, $200,000 easily can come from other people, and they're going to earn a 20% annual return. They're not going to be your partner. They're not going to be your partner. You don't get to make 20% and own 50% of the deal. You get to earn 20%. So now, how much money do you need? Well, under this example, it's $100,000. Suppose you say to me, Keith, I don't have $100,000. All I got is $50,000. That's okay. Your partner's going to put up $250 and you're going to put up $50. I've literally seen people do this exact same deal and put in as little as 10, 15, 20,000 pounds or euros or dollars of their own money. It doesn't take a lot of money. So let's see what the math is when we get all done. The math is this million right here is going to cost $170,000 a year for the next 8 years. This $350 right here, 8% of 6 years, is going to cost $75,000 a year for the next 8 years. This 20% or $40,000 per year is as long as you keep these guys in the deal. So let's add this up. I got $550 of profits that are available to be spent on this financing. If you take $550 minus $170 minus $75 minus $40, what you're left over with is $265,000 a year. $265,000 a year. How much did you invest? $100. You invested $100, and what you're able to produce is $265,000 a year. Unlike real estate, where you got to go out and do a new deal every year, every day to make money, this one just sits here and grinds out cash. If you run it. Now, if you try to get passive and be on it and leave it and systematize it, you're going to have some problems. But if you dig in and say, you know what, I'm going to grow this thing, I'm going to be engaged, involved, then these numbers are real. At the end, if you say to yourself, here's where it gets kind of interesting. If you say to yourself, you know what, I'm willing to live off of $150 a year, and that other $115 that the thing is making, I'm going to throw it at the debt. Here's what this thing looks like at the end of 5 years. At the end of 5 years, what this thing looks like is this. At the end of 5 years, your investment is $100. Your return on your investment is $150 a year for the first 5 years. At the end of 5 years, in the 6th year, if you take that extra $115 and throw it at the debt, and of course, you know, if you grow it, it could even be better than this. At the end of 5 years, your annual earnings from owning this business will be $550,000 a year. That makes the assumption you don't grow it. And you will have an asset that if you wanted to sell it for 3 times earnings is worth $1,650,000. There's no debt. There's no debt at the end of 5 years. Now, it's not passive, and it's not for everybody. Now, my question that I always ask is, how many businesses, how many assets do you need to own, honestly, that are throwing off $550,000 a year that you could sell for $1 million? How many of those do you need to own? The answer would be 1. You just got to do this 1 time. And the reality is, once you learn how to do it, if you wanted to, once you learn how to do it and get good at it, there's a way to do it multiple times, which is what I've done over the years. And I'm not saying every time I've done it, it's been an outrageous success. But I haven't done this and lost money. And the key is learning how to spot them, how to evaluate them, how to talk to the seller, how to find out where the seller is playing hide-the-weenie with you, which, you know, those little sellers are big fat liars, thieves, and crooks, right? How to find the broker to help you find the deal, how to finance them, how to figure out how much they're worth, how to put a value on them. All that stuff is taught during this 5 days. You'll wind up leaving with a manual that's about 4 inches thick and is literally the step-by-step guide. It answers all the questions that I need.